Guys, Mel Kiper did a thing, and I don't absolutely hate it.
No huddle, Wilson end zone, caught, touchdown, Elijah Moore.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking Jets with Tigo. And literally 13 minutes ago, Mel Kiper dropped a mock draft. Now, I don't like doing the mocks or let's review the mocks and kind of thing like that, especially when it comes to some of the big name media guys, because I feel like they're so out of touch from what teams are actually going to do and their draft strategies. I think that a lot of these guys are going for like a shock sticker value kind of a thing, or a thing that they could sell for, oh, this is why the team should do this, but it's just like not a good idea, generally speaking. But Mel Kiper just dropped a 2-round mock draft, and I don't hate it, especially from the perspective of a Jets fan. There's only one pick that he makes because he does a 2-round mock draft that I'm not a fan of. But even if it played out this way, like, I'm not mad. I'm not upset at it. I actually really kind of like it. So let's go over the 2-round mock draft that Mel Kiper did. I'm not going to go over all picks, like all 64 picks. I'm going to go over a couple of the picks that I really, really like in the first round, including obviously all of the Jets picks, and then some of the picks in the second round, including the Jets pick, and then some of them like I like in the second round, some that I don't like in the second round, and some of the players that weren't picked that lead up to what the Jets might do in the third round if the mock played out this way. But before we get into that, guys, we are doing a giveaway on the channel. The 2022 hats, draft hats just dropped. I've ordered mine. I'm very, very excited. They look incredible. I'm excited for those things. Remember, hit the subscribe button if you want to be in on that. But let's just hop right in. So let's do the top 10 picks, go over them, what I think of these picks, and do I think these teams would actually make these picks. So let's start. Number 1, Jacksonville Jaguars take Aiden Hutchinson. That's just a standard pick. I think we're going to see a lot of this over the next few weeks. We might see a Trayvon Walker thrown in there over the next couple of weeks. But ultimately, very easy pick. Aiden Hutchinson, Jacksonville Jaguars. At number 2, the Detroit Lions. And this is one of those picks with Houston that we have no idea where they're going to go. People have generally an idea of what they're doing. And this is the first pick on the draft that I'm not necessarily a super fan of. I don't have a problem with it, but I just don't know if the team would be willing to do this pick, and I'll go over that in a second. And they take Ahmad Sauce Gardner. Now, let me say, it's not that I have an issue with Ahmad going number 2 overall. I think Ahmad, to me, is my number 2 player on my big board, behind only Kvon. I love Ahmad Gardner. My biggest complaint, or not complaint, but my biggest thing here is that a few years ago, they took Jeff Okudah number 3 overall. And would this team be willing to take that kind of player again? You know, I like to use the Jets as an example. The Jets have a sour taste in their mouth after the Jamal Adams pick. You know, taking 2 safeties in the first round and the second round. And so I think a lot of players are hesitant on taking a player like a safety or a defensive back that high. Now, I think that we should be as Jets fans, because safety just isn't a position of value, really. Like, on the positional value chart, safety is really, really low. And if you can get a safety later and just keep safeties on rookie deals, you end up having a much higher likelihood of success over time, because you can find safeties late. So I don't have a problem with this pick. I just don't know if the Detroit Lions make it. Number 3 overall, the Houston Texans take Trayvon Walker, defensive end out of Georgia. Now, I really like what Mel Kiper put in his little thing here is, I don't think anyone outside the organization really knows what the Texans will do in round 1. For this mock, I'm trying to think long-term with Houston, which just has to add some talent. I like the thought process here of the Trayvon Walker pick, which is the team's bad. Let's just take players that might not hit in years 1 or 2, but by year 3, they should be studs, and that's exactly what Trayvon Walker can be. Now, the only reason I don't like this pick is because Icky is the number 1 player on my board. He is still available, and I think you should BPA if you're Houston. You should just take the best player available, and to me, that's Ika Mekwonu. But Trayvon Walker here isn't a bad pick, so I wouldn't necessarily be upset if this is how it played out. Now, the first pick for the Jets at number 4 is going to be Kvon Thibaut, defensive end out of Oregon. Now, we know my feelings on Kvon Thibaut. I'm not the biggest fan of the guy. But I understand the pick of him here. He's an uber talented guy. He's got a lot of potential. Maybe we're buying into this brand thing a little bit too much. I don't think that we are. Like, it does scare me, but New York might be the right market for that. This team might be the right team for that. So, again, if we walked away with Kvon Thibaut, I'm not that upset about it because Kvon is an incredible talent. But I do have my concerns. But Kvon Thibaut here at 4, it's a great pick. And it falls in line with what the Jets are going to be doing. For the longest time, Mel had us taking, like, I'm honestly surprised Mel Kiper doesn't have Kyle Hamilton here at 4. Like, honestly, because like that's such a Mel thing to do, which is just ignore the team's history, ignore the team's drafting strategy, and just say, screw it, let me just take a player that I'm really high on. Next, let's talk New York Giants. New York Giants are on the clock at pick 5, and the New York Giants take Ika Mekwonu, offensive tackle out of North Carolina State. Now, if the board plays out this way, like, if you're a Giants fan, you have to be jumping out of your chair, right? Like, you don't have a single one of the tackles taken before you. In this mock, nobody comes and trades up to get in front of you to get a tackle, and you walk away with the best tackle on the board, and not just the best tackle. He can play left tackle, he can play right tackle, he can play both guards. You walk away with, like, in my opinion, the best offensive player in this draft at 5, and you can partner him with Andrew Thomas on the other side. Like, look, this is a great pick for the Giants. If the board shook out this way, this is stunning. Now, I don't know if Icky makes it past 3 to the Texans, especially with the state of their offensive line unit, but wow, what a pick for the Giants. I love this pick for them. I think it's great for them and gets them going in the right direction under Brian Dable. Great pick out of Mel Kiper here at 5. At number 6, the Carolina Panthers take Malik Willis. Here's the situation with the Carolina pick. Anytime Carolina takes a quarterback in this draft, I'm not a fan of. But what Mel Kiper says in the first sentence of his little thing kind of makes sense. Doesn't Carolina's coach, Matt Rule, have to take a swing on a quarterback here? The Panthers don't have a second or third round pick, and Rule is entering this season on the hot seat. This is exactly the kind of desperation move that you can expect the Panthers to make. I have no problem with Malik Willis. It's just that I'm still on the boat that I think Sam Darnold can work out. And I think that if you build up an offensive line around him to help Christian McCaffrey to take less of a load and have to take less hits and move the ball downfield, I would much rather an Evan Neal pick here. But quarterback Malik Willis of the Panthers makes a lot of sense. He has a lot of upside. He has an incredible arm, so he'll be able to hit Robbie Anderson downfield really, really well. It just kind of works. At number 7, the New York Giants are taking Jermaine Johnson, defensive end out of Florida State. I absolutely hate this pick. Not because it's a bad pick for the Giants. It's a great pick for the Giants. But I just don't want good players going to the Giants. I think Jermaine Johnson has the possibility to end up being the best edge in this class. And to see him taken at 7 to the Giants really, really hurts. But the real thing here is, I know that Wink Martindale likes to run, or is it Don Martindale? Whatever. In Martindale's system, they like to run from the back. They like to build up teams from the back forward. They put a lot of pressure on the defensive backs in the cornerback room. And with Derek Stingley on the board and how high I know he likes Derek Stingley, I would have preferred that pick here, or even a Kyle Hamilton type of pick here. Just because, again, the defensive backs put a lot of pressure in it. But Jermaine Johnson, excellent pick. I really, really like that they're addressing the edge rush here, even though I think that corner might be a little bit bigger of a need. But I think he's going under the assumption that Bradbury's still on the roster and he's not off of it yet. And that's a good assumption. As long as Bradbury's on the roster, they don't have a need at corner that supersedes their need at edge. So Jermaine Johnson here at 7, great pick. Now, he has Atlanta going with Garrett Wilson. I think it makes a lot of sense. I've had this mocked for a long time. I think a lot of people have this mocked. It just makes a lot of sense. The Seattle Seahawks at 9, they have taken Evan Neal. This is a great scenario for the Seahawks. I had them penciled in as taking Charles Cross for the longest time because I always saw Evan Neal and Ike Ekwonu being taken in the top 5 at picks. I always thought one of the top 3 teams was going to take a swing on a tackle, and we always knew that the Giants were going to take a tackle. Evan Neal falling all the way to 9 to the Seahawks is a great pick. Seahawks need to help that offensive line. They need to make sure that Drew Lock has some help there. Now, even though I kind of agree with Mel here, I'm not the biggest fan on Drew Lock. This is a good future pick. This is a pick that you're making not for year 1, but years 2 and 3 down the road. So Evan Neal to the Seahawks, I'm not mad at this pick. At number 10, and the last pick that we're going to do like in order, we're going to look at it, is the New York Jets take Drake London, wide receiver out of USC. This is a great draft. This is addressing the 2 biggest positions in need on the football team according to the offseason and what we're doing. Getting 2 players that I have really, really high up on my boards with incredible upside, and adding a wide receiver threat to Zach Wilson that's going to provide something different and be a red zone threat for the New York Jets and Zach Wilson. Guys, I love this pick. I have Drake London as my number 1 receiver on my board. And it's not close. It's not like it's like Drake London 1A, Garrett Wilson 1B. No. Drake London is a clear number 1 wide receiver. The ankle injury isn't that bad in my eyes. It's not something that, like, it's not an Achilles tear, it's not an ACL tear or anything like that. Like, the ankle injury is something that I'm not that worried about. He also never really dominated with his speed, you know? Like, if this was a Christian Watson with a broken ankle coming in, I'd be a little bit more worried because he dominates with his speed. Drake London dominates with his route running and just being incredibly strong in coverage. Like, it doesn't matter that someone on him, he's still going to beat you because he's big and he's strong. So Drake London here, great pick. Now let's just go over some other picks that I'm a real big fan of in the first round, and then we'll go into the second round. So there's 2 picks immediately that I'm a really big fan of, and that's Washington taking Kyle Hamilton at 11. Now, I'm not a fan of Kyle Hamilton as a player. I think he's just really a box safety that can cover tight ends. I don't trust him in single coverage. I wouldn't really want to see him in coverage a lot deep down the field just because, like, he's not quick, and I think he's a little too instinctive with some of the things that he does. And I think in the NFL, at the NFL level, he's going to get baited by quarterbacks' eyes a little bit more, where quarterbacks' eyes move a little bit more. But going to a team that is really, really fundamentally and structurally sound, I think is great for Washington, and he can go in there and play a much reduced role because he's not going to be asked to do a bunch of stuff because Washington is a pretty complete. Next pick that I like is Houston at 13. I think this is a great pick for Houston, and Charles Cross at 13. I don't think that Charles Cross falls this far at the actual day, but I think Houston needs to address the offensive line. They need to address that offensive line. As of next year, they won't have a tackle on the team worth a damn because they won't have someone under contract because I think Laramie Tunsil is going to get traded. And they haven't re-signed Titus Howard. So I think you need to address that offensive line unit. I think doing it at 13 is a little rich for my blood. I wouldn't take that risk, but with Charles Cross being here on the board, this is a great outcome for Houston Texans fans because they walk away with great players. Now, with the fact that Trent McDuffie was still on the board and like Derek Stingley goes a pick ahead of them and Kyle Hamilton 2 picks ahead of them, I think that if I'm the Texans, I'm going into this draft going offensive line at 3, cornerback at 13, just because of the comments that Lovie Smith made. But again, Charles Cross here at 13 is a great pick for Houston. I'm a big fan of it. Now let's talk about a pick that I'm not a fan of, and that's Kenny Pickett, quarterback, Pitt, staying in Pittsburgh and playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, let me talk about why I'm not a fan of this. One, I am not sold on Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett, to me, should be taken in the second round. Now, if you want to talk about going in the top of the second round and things like that, that's where I see Kenny Pickett is value for what he's going to bring to a team. I think he's a little old for my liking, and I don't think he has an incredible upside. I get very, I don't know. It's just, I'm not a big fan of it. And I also think that Pittsburgh shouldn't be looking for a quarterback in this draft. I don't think you should be taking a quarterback at 20 in this weak kind of draft. I think they have other needs. And I think that with some of the players that are still on the board, like Daxton Hill is still on the board, Andrew Booth Jr. is still on the board, Lewis Sine is still on the board, Kyrie Lam is still on the board. With these kinds of corners and defensive backs there, I think they should take one of those players. Personally, I like what they're doing. The other option would maybe be taking an offensive lineman here, like a Kenyon Green. Like, I wouldn't hate that as Zion Johnson. I wouldn't hate that here at 20 for them. But taking a quarter, I just think it's a reach. I'm not a big fan of it, and that's just really it. Now let's go to pick 31. Mel Kiper has the Jets trading back into the first round with the Bengals at 31 to come up and get Tyler Linderbaum. Guys, if this is the way that the draft played out, and these are the picks that we walked away with on day one, I would be jumping with joy. The video that I would make at the end of that day would just be me screaming that Joe Douglas is a genius. He walked away with my 3 favorite players in this draft. Now, they're not my 1, 2, 3, but like my 3 favorite players in this draft when it comes to an offensive scheme. He's giving us our center of the future in Tyler Linderbaum, giving us the ability to trade and or cut McGovern, or screw it, you keep him for a year at $9 million because it's not that much money. Setting up this offensive line for a really long time. Not only did we have addressed the team in a way that's going to help Robert Saleh, because I feel last draft was very Mike LaFleur oriented. It wasn't really built to helping Saleh. It was, let's take day 2 and day 3 picks and let's help him that way versus taking high-end talent. This is a perfect combo of both. Let's get the guy that Robert Saleh needs in his defense to make it work, which is that number 1 edge rusher in Kvon Thibaut. And let's go help our franchise quarterback the way that we told him on the call that we did with him. We're going to support you, not the other way around. You're not going to lift us up. We're going to lift you. All gas, no brake. Let's get a mauler in the run game, someone who can play in our scheme and provide extreme value at pick 31, a pick I feel much more comfortable making this late than in the 10s or in the teens. And we only had to give up pick 35 and a day 4 pick, like a 4th round pick. So the Bengals get an additional pick by moving down just 4 or 5 spots. It's 4 spots. And the Jets get to come up, get a guy, get a 5th year of control, and help their team out. I love this pick. And then the last pick in the first round that I really like is Lewis Sine, safety out of Georgia. I really like this pick because it's the first time that the Heat doesn't have the Lions taking a quarterback in the first round. Or not the first time he doesn't have. I mean, this is one of those drafts that doesn't have the Lions taking a quarterback in the first round, and I think that is a really good thing. I don't think that the Lions are going to be taking a quarterback this year because, I don't think that they should. The only quarterback that I would be okay with them taking would be if they took Malik Willis at 2. And the only reason I would feel comfortable with that is because of his incredible upside, and they have Jared Goff to have him sit. I think Jared Goff is going to lose you more games than he's going to win. You're going to have a high draft pick next year, and with next year's quarterback draft class being a lot more closer to elite, with 3 prospects already be in the conversation to be the number 1 pick, and a 4th, like 4th and 5th if you want to count Rattler and Slovis maybe having a revival in their careers at their new schools. There are a lot more better quarterback prospects coming out in next year's draft than in this year's draft. That I think it's going to be a lot more enticing for the Lions to hold off and wait till next year, and I love this pick. Now let's talk in the second round. Let's talk what the Jets do at 38. And why it's the only pick I have a problem with. And that is Breece Hall, running back out of Iowa State. One, I have Breece Hall as my best running back in the draft. I really, really like what he brings, and I think the Jets could use a running back. The only thing that I don't like is that the Jets are taking a running back at 38. Now, let me preface this by saying that in my ideal world, we would take a linebacker or a safety here. Now, I've had Jaquan Brisker mocked to the Jets for a long time, but in this world, the picks that go like right before the Jets, like 35, 36, and 37, are Kyrie Long, cornerback out of Florida, Jalen Petrie, safety out of Baylor, and Jaquan Brisker, safety out of Penn State. And those are all the guys that I would feel comfortable taking at 38, and they're all off the board. Now, Kyler Gordon is still there, and he actually goes the next pick to the Bears, but I don't think we need a corner that desperately. I really like Bryce Hall. I really like DJ Reed, so I would like to address the safety room, and he's not there. So pivoting to a running back here is a great selection for the Jets because it still gives us that positional versatility. We like we saw in San Francisco, and what the Jets tend to believe, they like doing offensive production by committee, especially through the running back room and in the wide receiver room, and bringing in another really, really high-end guy to partner with Michael Carter, not take snaps away from him, but partner with him so that they're both healthy for the whole entire year is awesome. Again, it's not necessarily when I would take a running back in this draft because I think we need to take a running back in this draft. But again, if you're telling me that the Jets walk away in this draft with Kvon Thibaut, Drake London, Tyler Linderbaum, and Breece Hall in the top 40, sign me up every day of the week. I really, really like this draft. Now let's go over some second-round picks that I think are very interesting and some guys that maybe I'm not a fan of and some guys that I am a fan of. They have Seattle at 40 taking Desmond Ridder. I guess my thing would be is if you're going to take a quarterback in the second round, wouldn't you want to go with a guy from upside? This feels a lot more like a Matt Corral pick than a Desmond Ridder pick here. And I'm also just not a fan of Seattle taking a quarterback this year. You got Drew Lock. Maybe just wait till next year. But I'm like that with a lot of quarterbacks and a lot of teams taking a quarterback. And I'm also not a Desmond Ridder fan. So it's not that I'm upset with this pick. I'm also just not a big fan of it, I guess is the best thing to say. Now, at 43, he has Boye Mafe going to Atlanta. This is a huge slide from where I actually think Boye Mafe is going to go. I think Boye Mafe is going to go really high in the draft. But for Atlanta to get Boye Mafe here, I think this is a great pick. They address a position in need at edge rusher, and they can partner him on the other side of, I think it's Brady Jarrett is his name. I don't remember what the edge rusher in Atlanta is called. But this is a great pick for the Falcons, and I really, really like this. And the other pick that I really like in the second round is Cleveland Browns taking Travis Jones. This is just adding another mauler in that front four to really, really help their guy in Garrett. Myles Garrett is one of the best players in the NFL, and helping him by having someone be like a stout, middle-of-the-pack, 2-round who can possibly become a 3-down defender, is a really, it just helps eat up blocks because Travis Jones is just a monster of a human being at 6'4", 325. Another pick that there's 2 picks here that I'm a really, really, really big fan of, and that's George Pickens at 47 to the Washington Commanders, and at 49, the New Orleans Saints taking Matt Corral. I love that in this draft he didn't have the Saints taking a quarterback in the first round. I think they made this move not necessarily for a quarterback, but I think they made this move because they know they need good players. And Matt Corral in the second round is the perfect type of pick. He has incredible upside. He has a lot of talent. He's young. He can benefit from staying as a backup role at the beginning of his career and slowly beating out Jameis Winston over time. And he's already in that, like, from the South, because he plays in Mississippi. The transition from Mississippi to New Orleans wouldn't be that crazy. You move one state over. Is it one state over? I don't remember. You move a couple states over, and then you get to play in the South again. It's a familiar name in New Orleans in the sense of, like, college football. Like, you should know Ole Miss quarterback Matt Corral. I think this is a great pick. And then George Pickens going to Washington is just an awesome, awesome pick. Terry McLaurin is a great wide receiver, but bringing in George Pickens to partner with him, that's just going to be a nasty wide receiver duo. Carson Wentz is going to have a lot of targets to be able to throw the ball to. I love this pick for the Washington Commanders. And then the other pick that I'm a real big fan of, or let me say the other player that didn't get taken that I'm a fan of in this 2-round mock draft, is Chad Muma, linebacker out of Wyoming, doesn't get taken. A couple of the linebackers that I'm a big fan of don't get taken in this mock draft in the 2nd round, and I am a huge fan of this because I think the Jets need to address linebacker, and he doesn't have Leo Chenal going. He doesn't have Leo Chenal going in the 2nd round. He doesn't have Brian Asamoah going in the 2nd round, which I really like. He doesn't have Chad Muma going in the 2nd round. He doesn't have Christian Harris going in the 2nd round. And these are all guys that I really like for the Jets and the scheme that they're going to be running. And a lot of those guys are going to be available when the Jets are picking at 69. And so I'm a really big fan of this. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you like this mock draft out of Mel Kiper? If the Jets walked away with this, would you be as excited as I am? Let me know in the comment section below. Guys, like I said, last reminder, hit the subscribe button if you want to be part of that giveaway. And last but not least, go Jets.